4:32 p.m. Please make sure your cell phones are turned off on the silent mode to avoid any unnecessary interruptions in the meeting. Public comments are only allowed during the public comment portion of the meeting. Please see your agenda. When addressing the City Council, the speaker must state his or her name and address. This will help us to determine if you're inside our city limits, in our police jurisdiction, or outside of our jurisdictional boundaries. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the City Council. You'll be notified at the end of 2 minutes that you have 1 minute remaining to summarize. Okay, roll call.
Mayor Hale.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Webb.
Here.
Councilmember Branson.
Here.
Councilmember Shari.
Here.
Okay, invocation and pledge. Mr. Webb, please, would you do our invocation and pledge?
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to serve you in this manner, Lord, and we thank you for your presence here at this meeting. And Lord, may we conduct this meeting that would bring honor and glory to your precious name, and bless each person that is present. Thank you again, Lord, for the opportunity to serve you in this community. These things we ask in the precious name of Jesus and just for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
Please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda, public comments. If anyone would like to make public comments, you need to fill out a public comment form that's in the back of the room and then turn that in to the city clerk, to Brandy.
Okay, Linda Smith.
Thank you. Mayor Hale, distinguished council members, concerned citizens, representatives of the media. My name is Linda Smith. I live at 3325 Crestwood Drive in the city limits of Semmes. And I come here as a concerned citizen to this meeting, which has been called emergency special called meeting, the third one in 5 days. They've been called without much notice and without regard to prior commitments, plans, or even observances of our day of rest. A wise and effective manager once told me a slogan that she had adopted: "Your lack of planning does not make an emergency for me." The splash pad project has exhibited a lack of planning from the beginning. And this grant application is not an emergency. This is not the last grant ever to be available. And a grant for development of this particular site would be a tragedy. I would call it, rather than splash pad, I would call it the big drain. I know that citizens have gotten their hopes raised for a wonderful park. They've gotten all kinds of imaginations of what that park would be like. And just for a show of hands, how many of you support this application for this grant, for this splash pad at this location? Thank you. How many of these who raised your hands know where the location is? How many of you have seen, eyes on, the location? Okay, yeah, 6 of you. I saw it yesterday. Very disappointing indeed. You may think it's odd for me, a grandmother of 6 with an empty nest right now, to be concerned about this. But this is just a a representation of a pattern of the city administration rushing through things for approval. Rushing, it's got to be a special meeting, call meeting, hurry, hurry, waive the rules, approve it now or else, you know. This splash pad has not been thoroughly researched, and it's ill-conceived. It's money down the drain. There has not first been accounting the cost. I have with me some questions and concerns I have copies of in case I don't get to all of them right now. The time is very short. It goes very fast up here. So I would be happy to share those with any of you. And maybe some of the later speakers could address or ask some of those questions. My big concerns are, like the real estate people say, location, location, location. Those of you who've seen the property know that it's right by a railroad line. They plan to have restrooms on the splash pad property. I wonder if the boxcar riders will find that attractive and hop right over. It's at the end of a dead-end street next to a fire station. I wonder if the firemen will be called on to clean the toilets, run people out of the park when it's time, manage emergencies there, or just try to manage the park. It's not the fireman's responsibility. It's accessible by no other means than cars, basically. You wouldn't walk or ride a bike on Schillinger Road to get there. You certainly wouldn't send your children alone to go there. There are pine trees on the property, lovely pine trees, and a parking lot would probably take up a lot of the flat front space on the parking lot, on the property, which leaves a big area in the center with pine trees, and I don't know if they would have to be cut down. But if they weren't cut down, who's going to clean the sap and the pine needles from the splash pad? Is that going to be fire department's responsibility? They fall every night. There's no fence at the back or alongside the wooded railway side of the property. Are there any legitimate cost estimates from the fence company for the project? There's no sewer line at present. An estimate I heard was $35,000 just for the sewer line. There is no lighting to speak of on the property. There would need to be lighting in the restrooms and just for safety and security for the property. Can you imagine being there after dark? Mosquitoes thrive in warm, moist areas. We're getting more concerned about the viruses carried by mosquitoes these days. What would be the plan and additional cost for mosquito control in the area? Would a passing drive-by once a month or even once a week mosquito trap really address the problems? Would that be adequate? Another big concern, of course, is money, money, money. I know that the matching grant is supposed to be $130,000, but that means the city of Semmes putting in $130,000, or up to whatever the city of Semmes puts in would be matched up to that point. But the city of Semmes really does not need to spend $130,000 on that piece of property for that use. I know there may be a bunch of kids that would love to have a splash pad, love to have a party. The idea is very appealing. But I don't know who has considered the what-ifs of why the city would engage in trying to be the source of entertainment for its citizens. That's not the government's job. There are lots of expenses that have not been detailed or considered, or certainly no breakdown, no counting the cost. The liability insurance, the lighting, the tree removal, landscaping, the toilet facilities, the manpower, the time, sidewalk, parking, paving. Once the initial expense of installation is complete and the park is open, there are going to be ongoing expenses every year. Has anybody given you an estimate of the water use or the electricity or the personnel? Is there going to be a manager of this park that's going to be there every time it's opened?
Ms.
Is there?
Smith, you've gone over your time limit.
I was not given a minute warning. I'll wrap it up.
2 minutes.
I will, I'll wrap it up. And you can see the rest of my concerns and questions on here, but there are some what-ifs that have not been considered on this piece of property. And a grant for this piece of property would not be worth it at any cost. What if a mother and her 2 young children were the only ones at the park one morning when some men jumped off the box car to come use the toilets? What if there were just a few mothers and children in the park and a bunch of big teen boys or young men came wandering by? What if a 10-year-old hit somebody else's 2-year-old? Would the mothers get into a fight? A single bullying child, or parent for that matter, could make the park unpleasant enough to drive a lot of people away. Then where's your investment? Why would the city of Semmes even need to put itself into the position of having to manage behavior in the park? Why should the government be responsible for our entertainment? Why should the city government
Ms.
build
Smith.
and run a
Ms.
facility with so much potential liability, so little potential use at such enormous cost? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.